And it's Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and whatever time zone you happen to be in, welcome to the Sports Wagering Zone. We're coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as on Blackjack TV, and of course on most of your major podcast platforms as well, such as Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, you name it, we are there for you. So, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for listening. We totally appreciate your patronage and listening to the show. So, we have a lot to talk about today. First of all, there is some good news out there, especially if you happen to live in Florida. Yes, Florida. Why? Because Florida has gone forward and legalized betting in the state of Florida. You live in Florida, you like to bet on sports. Yesterday was as good a day as you could ask for, right? Just out of nowhere, because we know that Maryland recently passed legislation, just waiting for the governor to sign it. I know we just recently got Arizona into the fold, and now no, all of a sudden, in comes Florida, almost out of nowhere. The news broke that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he signed a sports gambling deal with the Seminole tribe to bring legalized betting to the Sunshine State. So the deal is going to now move to the Florida legislature for its final approval, which should be no problem at all, with a special session set for May 17th to debate the issue if it is approved. Now, Florida will become the biggest domino to fall so far in this whole push to get legalized sports betting legalized in America. Florida has countless pro college teams. They also have the third biggest population in the country, roughly about 21, 22 million people live in Florida right now. Only California has almost 40 million, or Texas with 29 are larger than Florida. So Florida would overtake New York as the biggest state to offer legalized betting. And if the deal passes, which it definitely should, Florida would become the 28th state to legalize betting. And of course, we say more than likely will be passed because let's look at it. Face it, most of the residents of Florida right now are from the Northeast. Most of them are from the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut area. And sports betting has been going on there for centuries, I think, as far as I'm concerned. Probably bet on the first time that somebody would throw a rock up against a wall or try to throw a rock into a basket or something of that nature. But of course, that part of the country has been very big into sports betting for many, many years leading up to and really leading the charge to have legalized betting brought forward. Remember, it was the state of New Jersey who wanted to start legalized betting, was denied. They went to the courts. They lost in the lower level, but they appealed it, won it into the Supreme Court, and that's the whole story as far as betting is concerned. So Florida, kind of going to take a couple of weeks or so before everything kind of settles in, but Florida is now coming into the fold as well. One thing to remember, we've always talked about all these new bettors coming into the fold throughout the country, how for many people, it's going to be a very first time that they're going to be able to make legal bets, okay? So for the first time, got a lot of first-time bettors, first-time punters, as we used to call them. They're going to be coming in. We all know that the recreational bettor is generally betting on favorites. They have their biases. But I'll tell you, when you look at Florida and the people that are down in Florida, majority of them coming up from the Northeast, they're a little more astute. You're not going to get as many people going in that direction. So as a contrarian, we love to see these states coming in because of this plethora of new bettors coming in who have these biases, who have all these bad habits that we look at as bad habits, but of course to the advantage of us as contrarians. So that's the story. Welcome, Florida. Welcome into the fold. back into having sports wagering legalized within the state of Florida, now the 28th state to get it done. Anyway, that's the story. That's the big news so far as betting is concerned. But also, we're going to talk about handicapping and betting on baseball. We got some tips to give you. We have some time. We're going to spend some time talking about it. There are things that we talk about during the week that we kind of carry over into the weekend because we have different listeners that listen on Saturday and Sunday morning as opposed to people that listen throughout the week. So we like to repeat some of the stuff. So for you listeners who have been listening during the week, it's just going to be repetitious in a certain way, but it's something that you should grab a hold on to and keep in mind as well. So in addition to that, we're going to be talking about the Kentucky Derby. That's going to be coming up. It's always the first Saturday in May, which will be next Saturday, of course. So we'll be talking about that as well. And of course, we're going to go into what happened yesterday as far as sports are concerned and betting and the various trends that are going on. So that's where we're going to start right now. Let's take a look and see what happened yesterday as far as betting was concerned. Meanwhile, the National Hockey League, like I said, the favorites went 4-1 with only one upset, and that's the biggest underdog. Just look at it this way. The Sabres plus 270 on the money line, 270. In other words, you wager 100, you win 270 against the Bruins. And all four winning favorites also covered, also on the 1.5 puck line as well. The overs went 3-2, but the unders, well, they still lead and they're at 51.3%. Meanwhile, the first period overs, they went 4-1 yesterday, but the first period unders still lead almost at 52%. Meanwhile, in the NBA, the favorites, they went 4-3 straight up, but hey, that looks good as far as the scores are concerned. But if you're betting, the underdogs were barking yesterday 4-3 against the spread. You had upsets by the Hawks, who were 6.5-point dogs, the Grizzlies, who were 4-point dogs, and the Warriors, who were 2.5-point dogs. Now, the Rockets, who were 9-point dogs, lost, even though they did lose the game, but of course they did cover at that +9 level. The favorites still lead in the NBA against the spread. They're at 50.5%. You had 11 pick'ems in that situation as well. As far as the unders are going, they went 4-3 yesterday. But the overs, they still lead. They're at 50.5% as well. So that's the story with the NBA. Meanwhile, in Major League Baseball, the favorites, they went crazy yesterday. They went 12-2 with the Reds and Cardinals closing as a pick'em. We talked about that game yesterday. That was one of the system bets that we had talked about yesterday, how the Cardinals had gone from being a 2-point underdog becoming a 1.5-point favorite, and then through the day came back to being a pick'em or a 1-point dog as well. So the only upsets were by the Blue Jays, who were a +147 on the money line against the Rays, and the Padres were a +131 on the money line against the Dodgers. The favorites now have the lead, 141-134 straight up. You had 12 games that closed as a pick'em. Now, the over went 9-6 yesterday, but the unders, they still lead that 53%. So that's baseball, the NBA, National Hockey League, brought all that to your attention, let you know what's going on. We also talked about the fact that Florida is now going to be legalizing their sports betting situation as well. So welcome to the fold. So let's take our first break. And as usual, we take 3 breaks during the show. Each one is of about a 1 minute, 1 minute and a half duration. If that's the case, then we'll be back in 1 minute right after this announcement. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you very much for listening. Coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network and on various platforms as far as podcasting is concerned. We're on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Sprecher, you name it, we're there for you. So that's the story there. Anyway, we talked about Florida coming into the fold. Welcome to the people of Florida. You can't bet yet, but it's going to be done, and it won't be long before you will be doing it. Meanwhile, let's talk about how the money is going in three of the games coming up today in baseball. Kind of take a look and see which direction the line movement is going. And of course, once we determine that, we'll be able to tell in which direction the pros are betting as well. So at 2 o'clock this afternoon, give or take a few minutes, in Eastern time, of course, we always talk in Eastern time, the Pittsburgh Pirates, they're 9-11, going to play the Minnesota Twins, who are 7-11, two teams with losing records. The Twins took care of business yesterday in the opener. They beat Pittsburgh 2-0. And in that game, they were minus 150 home favorites on the money line. But today, the Pirates come out with their veteran righty Trevor Cahill, who's 0-2 this season with a horrendous 9.69 ERA. And the Twins, well, they start one of their co-aces, Michael Pineda. He's 1-0 so far this season, and his ERA is 1.0. So as we look at the line, though, it opened with Minnesota, a hefty minus 190 home favorite. And the pros are taking a look at the starting pitcher mismatch in this particular game. Now, they don't want to outsmart themselves, but they're taking a closer look at it as well. We've seen the pro money go and lay the chalk with the Twins, pushing Minnesota up from being a minus 190 to a minus 205 on the money line, which means you lay 205 to win 100. Now, historically, favorites have dominated the interleague play as the lack of, there's not as much familiarity when you're playing American against National League teams because they don't play each other. They don't play each other that often. So historically, it usually favors what we call the better team. Okay. So far this season, interleague favorites are at 58%. Now, we've also seen teams getting 10 cents of steam in their favor in a non-division game go to 56, almost 57% so far this season. This is one of those situations. But big favorites being at minus 200 or more, and if they come off a win, in other words, they won the day before, which they did do, it's at 80%. The Twins are going to rely on their superior bats. They got big, heavy bats to play in this game. Minnesota's hitting 253, which is the fourth best batting average in Major League Baseball. The Pirates, they're down at 233, which ranks them around 14th. So as far as the pros are concerned in this particular game, they like the Minnesota Twins. But if you're going to go along with the pros on this game, or if you happen to like Minnesota, even before we started talking, be ready to lay a lot of weight on this. Okay, you're going to be over minus 200 just about anywhere that you are with your sports books anywhere in the country, looks like. So that's the story with that first game. Meanwhile, also at 2:15, you have the Cincinnati Reds 9-10 and the St. Louis Cardinals at 9-10. They both have the same records. The Cardinals fought off that late red surge yesterday. They won the game 5-4. They were a minus 108 home favorite. Okay. Some of the situations they were on the plus side as well, depending on which part of the country or what sports book you were dealing with. Now, in this afternoon's rematch, Cincinnati goes to their lefty, Wade Miley, who is 2-1 so far this season. He has a 2.25 ERA. Meanwhile, St. Louis comes back with their righty, John Gant. He's 0-2 this season with a 3.21 ERA. And as we look at the line on this game, It opened as a pick'em. Both sides were listed at minus 105 on the money line. Now, the pros have come in and gone on the Cardinals. So what happened was by doing that, the numbers moved from being a minus 105 up to minus 120 on the money line if you like the Cardinals. The Cardinals have value because they're a team coming off a win. They're getting a 15-cent steam move and also as well. Okay, that's more in their favor. And so far this season, teams that are in that situation are at 57%. The Cardinals are also a favorite with a low total. The low total here is 8. Now, historically, look at it this way. Low totals have benefited the favorites because there are fewer amount of runs that are going to be scored, which makes it more likely to come from the better team or the favorite in this situation. The total opened at 8.5. The pros jumped on the under with the hook, driving the line down to 8. Meanwhile, the weather really could play a role in this situation. The forecast calls for temperatures in the mid-50s, possibly rain, and wind blowing from left center at 5 to 10 miles per hour. The wind will be blowing in, which means that the balls will not be going out as far. That's why they're leaning towards the under. So in this particular game between the Reds and the Cardinals, pros are on the Cardinals and also on the under as well. Well, we have one more game to look at. That's at a little after 6 o'clock Eastern time. The New York Yankees in Cleveland to play the Cleveland Indians. We're going to take our second break, and when we come back, we're going to take a close look at the numbers on that particular game, let you know in which direction the line movement is going, and also kind of give you an idea as to where the pros are laying their money. So just a reminder, we will be back into the sports wagering zone right after these messages. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina, talking about baseball for today. Trying to look at the line movement, which is most important in the way we look at betting on games here at the sports wagering zone. And of course, by following the line movement, you know in which direction the pros, the big money, is going. And keep in mind that they're usually about 60% on the correct side. If you're up that high, you're going to be making money, no doubt about it. Okay. And also to keep in mind the fact that they lose 40% of the time. So they're not going to win every day. That's for darn sure. They're going to win some, they're going to lose some, but over the long haul, you just can't take a snap picture of 1 week or 2 weeks. You have to look over a whole period of time as to how well they do. And that's the story with them. Meanwhile, we're looking at two games we talked about earlier. The first game at 2:10 p.m. Eastern Time. Pirates and the Twins. The pros are on the Twins. And if you're going to go with them on that, you're going to have to be laying some heavy juice on that game. They're very highly favored. Cincinnati Reds against the St. Louis Cardinals. They like the Cardinals in that particular game. And finally, the last game that we're going to talk about at 6 o'clock this evening, the New York Yankees against the Cleveland Indians. Now, the Yankees have taken the first two games of the series. They won 6-3. In that first game, they were plus 100 as dogs, and then they won 5-3, turned around. They were minus 155 favorites. So tonight, we have two of the best pitchers in baseball. Yankees start their ace, Garrett Cole, 2-1 with a 1.82 ERA. The Indians come back with their number one Cy Young winner, Shane Bieber. He's 2-1 as well with a 2.45 ERA. Now, as we look at the line in this game, it opened as a virtual pick'em. Yeah, both sides listed as a minus 105 on the money line at the open. Now, the pro money has really come down on the Yankees, who seem to have finally gotten it going. They started off a miserable 5-10, but since then, they've gone 3-1 over the last four games. Now, we've seen New York move from being a minus 105 up to minus 120 on the money line. The Yankees have value because they're a team getting 10 cents of steam or more in a non-divisional game. Those teams are almost 57% so far this season. New York is also a favorite with a very low total. The total's at 6.5, and why not? You got two pitchers with IRAs below 2, okay, which plays to their advantage as well. Although the total's low, some of the books are starting to juice up the under to minus 115. And what this means is the under is under liability. Both teams have been profitable to the under this season. Yankees are 12-7 to the under, and the Indians are 11-7 to the under. So look for a low-scoring game. Pros are looking in that direction, as well as betting on the New York Yankees in this game as well. So those are the three games we have on tap for you as far as looking at line movement, as far as that's concerned. Today's games for baseball. And we talked about weather as being a factor. And we don't talk about that too much, but I just want to review a little bit about weather because it's most important. It gets overlooked most of the time. And yet, really, I know when we're talking NFL games, we talk about weather a lot, okay, especially snow, wind, stuff of that nature. But when it comes to baseball, for some reason, people don't pay as much attention, yet it does have a big effect, okay, especially if you're betting totals. Always check the wind direction. Check the direction of the wind, how fast it's going to be going, and you want to check the temperature and the humidity wherever it's going to be played. Because remember, if the wind is blowing out, that means from home plate out to the outfield, that helps the over because it could turn what would normally be a fly ball, say, to the warning track, all of a sudden becomes a home run, okay? The wind blowing in will benefit if you're on the unders because wind really makes a difference only once it's 10 miles per hour or more. Up until that point, no big deal. Hot temperatures and low humidity, they help the overs because the air is less dense with low humidity and the ball travels much farther because of that. Also keep track of the juice movement with the totals. It'll tell you where the liability comes in, where the next move might be going. So if a total opens up, say, 8.5, and it's at minus 110 on the money line and moves to 8.5 under on the under at 115, minus 115 on the money line, that shows you that there's action on the under, and it may possibly even go down to 8 as well. So that's weather is very important. We try to bring it up whenever it's possible, especially when you're playing at Wrigley Field, for instance, okay? Very important, whether the wind is blowing in or blowing out. Chicago isn't called the Windy City just for the fun of it. It's really something that's there. Another thing you want to do is you want to wait for the lineups to come out. Okay. Usually about the early afternoon, the lineups for the teams will come out. Make sure you check that before you make your bet. Make sure that none of the stars are not going to be playing, especially now. You know, you're talking about COVID. Somebody comes up positive. Yeah, they plan on playing throughout the day. You hear about it, so and so, no problems. Then all of a sudden, the results come back. They have a positive COVID test, and they're not going to play the game. So to avoid this kind of a problem, there's something built into betting on baseball, and we've talked about it during the week, where the starting pitcher for either team is being scratched. You should place your bets on what we call listed pitcher instead of betting action. When you're betting on baseball, you could either bet action or listed pitcher. What that means is if you're betting action, what happens is that if there's a change in the pitching by some means, whatever it is, whether it's COVID or maybe somebody pulls their muscle in the bullpen warming up or whatever, or they don't feel good, or perhaps the manager changes his mind because there's been a lineup change on the other team and they're going to hold this pitcher off for another day. Whatever it is, if you're betting action, you're going to get that line, whatever it was. If you bet listed pitcher, the pitchers are listed, the two starting pitchers, you know who they're going to be. And if any one of them gets pulled for whatever reason, your bet is nullified. You'll get your money back, or you have an option. Once you understand that there's been a pitching change, obviously the line numbers will change. And at that point in time, you can also get and bet with the pitcher that's going to be starting. You may even like the new pitcher being better than the pitcher that was there designated to begin with. So listed pitcher is definitely a way to kind of take a look at it. Baseball affords you that. We talked about this for last week, the week before. We kind of give people tips on this type of situations. And the response from most of the listeners, especially the hockey players, was, I wish they had that in hockey as well. Because how many times do you see hockey players not playing in a particular game because their injuries finally came up? You don't hear anything about it. Okay, or they don't feel good, or something of that nature, or they're going to give them a rest because they maybe they played 2 games in a row and now they're tired, but you're stuck with that number, whatever it is. In baseball, you have that out. That's the only sport that allows you to do that. And understand one other thing: baseball, very streaky. It's not uncommon to see teams lose 10 games in a row. It's not unusual. One of the biggest mistakes, especially if they are a new bettor, and some of the people that bet often also make the same mistake, is you kind of think that a team is due. Yeah, oh yeah, they're due. For example, a bad team wins a game. The public is automatically, they're going to get away from it that next day because, well, they think it got lucky. It's bound to get back to its losing ways again, okay? If a good team loses, the recreational bettor is often going to bet on it to win the next game, thinking, hey, it can't possibly lose again. It's impossible. They're too good. However, even bad teams, they can put together a winning streak just as well as the good teams can lose a few games in a row as all. That's called, we refer to it as gambler's fallacy. Doesn't mean just because you lost so many games in a row doesn't mean you're going to win all of a sudden. Same thing with roulette. You're sitting at the roulette table, you see 5 or 6 reds come up. Doesn't necessarily mean a black is going to come up after that, okay? So I'm sure you've seen that most of the time. And another mistake that new bettors make, you bet through one book, okay? Big negative. This is a bad idea because you're forced to take whatever number that book is offering. So instead, you want to make sure that you have access to more than one Sportsbook, so you can shop for the best number possible. It also helps to have a live odds page as well. Let's say you want to bet on the Mets as a short home favorite. New York might be a minus 125 at one book, but minus 120 at another. So saving the 5 cents might not seem like a big deal, but if you kind of look at it and you look at it over a full season, it definitely can make a big difference. So those are some thoughts and ideas. We're talking about baseball, so I thought I'd bring it up now, kind of give you a thought, kind of transition into that, give you some help, especially the new recreational bettors. And of course, even some of you guys that have been doing it for a while, you kind of fall into, get a little lazy sometimes. You don't really pay that much attention to what we consider to be basic facts of betting and wagering to be successful. We're here at the Sports Wagering Zone to kind of keep reminding you that, as boring as it may be, we're going to pound it into you so that you keep remembering it time after time after time. So let's take that final break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the Kentucky Derby, take a look at some of the horses, some of the odds on them, and we'll tell you all about that as well. So just a reminder, we're going to be back in the Sports Zone right after this message. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina, coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Well, we talked about baseball because baseball is really the big sport that's going on right now. I know there's some NBA games, there's National Hockey League games, but the NBA doesn't really, we don't start paying attention until the playoffs begin. It's very difficult, especially this season, to bet NBA basketball games because easily you don't know who's going to play. Okay, these players sit down, they get sick, they don't want to play, they get their time off, whatever it is. How can you make any type of a wager on a situation like that? So let's take a look at the Kentucky Derby that's going to be coming up soon, because there's some things going on there that might be of some help to you if you're interested in making a wager on the Derby. Because, the rate of dropping out of the Kentucky Derby is kind of hard to imagine. It's at a level that's we've never seen before. Usually we hear about stories of horses that are, they don't seem to fit into it, so they were taken off, they weren't going to be in it, but now it's more about how some of the trainers are reacting, some of the owners, how they're becoming more uncertain as to whether or not they want to have their horse running in the Derby. The trainers have said that their 3-year-olds might be better suited to, say, a shorter distance, or they might say, no, now let's wait another couple of weeks. We're not ready yet. And in some cases, that might actually be true. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Sometimes you're looking at your horse, you're training it in the early morning, and you say, it's just not ready. It needs another week or two before I can get it sharp. And also, well, maybe this distance is not the right distance for this horse. Let's go to another day or to a different race. Now, in some cases, like I said, that could be right. But it's also true that they want no part of a particular horse that's in the race, and the horse's name is essential quality. He's the best priced horse on the market right now. The Las Vegas futures have him as a 3-1 favorite. Now, it could be that horsemen are finally admitting or conceding that, these horses that were born back in 2018, and understand that a horse's age increases every year at January 1st. So these are the horses that were born back in 2018, and there weren't that many that were born that year. Again, that was the story then. Concert Tour was the latest big horse to drop out of the Derby. Bob Baffert decided after that third place finish in the Arkansas Derby that their homebred street sense was not training up to level, and that would be ready for prime time at Churchill Downs. The Preakness may be the place for this horse as well, and may be better off, mainly because of the distance, and of course, there's more time in between. So without Concert Tour, the Nevada money is focused on really 5 horses. Essential Quality, who's the favorite, Known Agenda, who's at 5-1, Rock Your World was plus 575 on the money line, Highly Motivated is 10-1, and Hot Rod Charlie is at 10-1. Now, those are fixed odds prices. Immediate action with the risk of a scratch being put into them as well. By the time post time comes, that's a little before 7 o'clock on May 1st, that risk is going to be removed, and all 5 horses might be in single digits on that particular day after everything happens. These are like we call the morning line odds. The only 2 times during the points era that at least 5 horses were shorter than 10-1 to start the Derby were the favorites Orb at 5-1 in 2013 and Justify at 5-2 in 2018, and they won by 2.5 lengths. This is not to suggest that Essential Quality is going to finish exactly 2.5 lengths in a week from now, okay? But the important message actually comes from the horses that are left to fill this 20-horse field. They really seem like fillers. They're looking for horses to make sure that we have enough horses out there to bet. Consider the true quality of the horses that are going to be in the Derby, or horses that could have been in the Derby, looking at all various different odds of various horses as we get closer and closer. Remember this, okay? Essential Quality will more than likely be the favorite, okay? Every indication is that the money is going to be concentrated on just a few legitimate horses. You'll able to have, like we said, 5-6 horses under 10-1. Now, remember that. Think of that when you're looking at a long shot, either when we get closer to the future situation or when you're at post time, because that's kind of different. It's going to be different this year than it has been in other years as far as the Derby is concerned. So that something needs to be looked at closer. We'll take a much more closer look at it during the week prior to the race itself. Try to give you as much insight as we possibly can. But right now, these are the horses that are going to be at the top of the list. Right now, we talked about the various, what we call morning line odds on these horses. But what's going to happen is once it's all settled, you're going to see these numbers move. And most of them are going to be moving in a down direction, which means if you have 5 to 6 horses or 7 or 8 horses that are going to be under 10-1, you're going to have a lot of long shots out there to take a look at. So you might want to take a closer look and give one of them a shot, because the odds on those horses are going to be astronomical. You've probably never seen it as this high as far as the Derby is concerned for many, many years. So that's the story on the Derby. We talked about the 3 games that are on tap for baseball as far as the pros are concerned. Pittsburgh against Minnesota. Again, if you like Minnesota, the pros like Minnesota, but you're going to be laying some heavy juice on that particular game. Cincinnati against St. Louis, they love the Cardinals. And in the Yankees against Cleveland, they kind of think the Yankees are finally ready to come back. Had a dismal start so far this season. You got 2 of the best pitchers in baseball pitching today. If you like baseball, you like pitching, it's going to be one game to watch. It should be phenomenal. Of course, it doesn't always work out that way, but still, you got two of the best pitchers in baseball going against each other. So in this particular game, you might want to look at the under in this particular game. So that's the story. That's the whole story as far as we know it. We talked about Florida. Welcome to the fold. Before long, you guys out there will be betting on these games legally, finally, for a change. And of course, we're here to help you as well. Now, in the meantime, if you have some relatives out that way, you're living in a state right now that has legalized betting, but you have relatives or friends living in Florida, in case they haven't heard the news, let them know about it. Let them know about the show, because this is where they can get the most help possible. So once again, thanks for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. We're here every Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you're going to bet the games today, whether it's basketball or hockey, baseball, whatever it is, the fight that's on that for tonight as well, I wish you the best of luck. I hope you do okay. And if not, I hope you have a very pleasant Saturday. Go out and enjoy the day. But even more importantly than that, not only can you have a happy or a pleasant Saturday, but you can have a profitable one as well. So until tomorrow at 11 a.m., I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you for listening. We'll be coming back again to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Until then, have a pleasant and profitable Saturday. Goodbye, everybody.